Hello. So I am going to give you a great example of the lunatics taking over the asylum, or running the asylum rather now. But before I do that, I am going to make a disclaimer. Because I think most of us know that gender dysphoria is a terribly crippling psychological condition. It's a mental dysfunction, and up till recently, people so afflicted, they just changed their societal roles and took on the outward form and function of the gender that they had chosen to be, of the sex they emulated, and they just kept their heads down, living as the sex of their choice and generally as unobtrusively as they could. And those people, of course, have my full sympathy, everyone's sympathy. It's a difficult life. But recently, a group of other types have piggybacked on this condition, and they're obviously not that psychologically stable, and they're using the tragedy of gender dysphoria to their advantage. They're the transgender activists. The last thing in the world that they want to do is stay quiet. That is the last thing on their minds. No, they want to be activists. They want to be given a lot of kudos, and frequently they don't even want to really be, and it's generally speaking, generally, not always, but the highest proportion seems to be men, grown men, pretending they're women, and not even bothering with the surgery that would make them look even reasonably feminine. Anyway, I don't know quite what the physical situation of this person is, but, let me read you the story. Transgender activist jailed for killing her boyfriend and then trying to rape a shop assistant 5 days after being released from prison is invited to speak at the House of Lords. Now, apparently this is somebody who is now called Karen Jones, born a man called Mark Jones, but has changed his name several times. I am not going to give this person the honour of being called she, so I'm going to get into trouble, I suppose. But they call, in this newspaper article in the Daily Mail, they refer to Karen Jones as Ms. Jones. I'm going to refer to him as Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones from Leeds was convicted of manslaughter after strangling his partner. Then, 5 days after being released in 2002, Jones assaulted a female shop assistant after gagging her mouth with a lemon and then tried to rape her. So it looks like Mr. Jones really is still a Mr. Jones. But Mr. Jones was invited to launch a review on transgender people in the criminal justice system in the House of Lords. No, he is not a transgender person. He is a man who claims to be a woman, and he is obviously not entirely mentally well. And this is a mental illness. Now, I have spoken about the problems that the British medical profession has with mental illness. There are very little provision for people who are genuinely mentally ill. And I think the whole idea of transgenderism at least in this country, is being embraced because it's one way of shifting to one side a group of mentally ill people who otherwise would have to go into the psychiatric system. But they're out of the statistics right now. But somebody who murders a sexual partner and then gets jailed on a manslaughter charge. I mean, this person was strangled, the partner. This is not, manslaughter is supposed to be an accident. I don't see how you can strangle somebody accidentally, but there you are. Jones was found guilty of manslaughter, gets out of jail and then tries to rape a shop assistant. This is not a sane person, but calls himself transgender and literally gets away with murder. Anyway, Karen Jones, Mark Jones, was asked by Lord Patel to talk about how the criminal justice system can better help transgender offenders. Well, in my opinion, the way that the criminal justice system can help transgender offenders is to put them in psychiatric hospitals, because that's where they belong. I'm talking about people of this sort. Remember, I'm not talking about proper transgender people, people with true gender dysphoria, like men who externally look like women because they've gone through all the terrible process of becoming female-bodied. Miss Jones, 34, who was born Mark Jones, is a convicted sex offender described by a judge as posing an extremely serious risk to the public. He was jailed for 5 years in 2001 after admitting suffocating and strangling 43-year-old partner Michael Cutler and leaving his decomposing body wrapped in a sheet in their Manchester home. Next bit. And here's a nice tweet. Still can't believe I'm going to be giving a speech in here. That's outside the Houses of Parliament. 5 days after being released early on licence in 2002. So Jones spent a year in jail for murdering somebody. That was all Mr. Cutler's life was worth. Anyway, having been released on licence, which means you're supposed to behave yourself, Jones brutally assaulted a female shop assistant after gagging her mouth with a lemon and trying to rape her. And then it says here, she was sentenced to life in prison. He said the attack was a cry for help, so that she could go back to prison and have the sex change operation she'd needed all her life. Oh, okay, so you need a sex change operation and you try to rape a shop assistant. Yeah, that's one way of doing it, I suppose. But since being freed, has become a motivational speaker, having also given a speech on transgender issues to Yorkshire Ambulance. So I can imagine all those people in the ambulances, in the ambulance service, people who are dealing with life and death struggles, with children with fatal asthma attacks and people who've been hit by cars and are dying in the street, and people who've died that they're trying to bring back to life, and they have to sit there and be polite and listen to somebody like this. A spokesman, so the Lord Patel of Bradford, who's chairman of the Community Innovations Enterprise. Oh, this is an innovation. Having a murderer talk to you about how terrible it is that you're not getting a sex change. Which aims to change government policy on a wide range of diversity issues, was fully aware of Ms. Jones' criminal past, so it wasn't even a mistake. A spokesman said, as far as we're concerned, she has done her time and paid her debt to society. You might think that. No, I don't. And honestly, I think that most of the people listening to this video might agree more with me than with Lord Patel's office. 1 year for killing someone. And then, jailed for life and now free after attempted rape. The event she gave a speech at was aimed at raising awareness of transgender issues in the criminal justice system, so why shouldn't she take part? Well, without wishing to point directly at her, I will say that if somebody kills their partner and then gets freed from prison after a year and then tries to rape somebody, that person is not precisely the sort of person you should be taking advice from. That person is somebody who has made some terrible life choices and is not psychologically stable. I'm not talking about this person, by the way. I'm being purely theoretical. Let's see what's next. This is the tweet. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I've just been invited to give my talk speech. My talk speech? At the House of Lords in London next month. I'm in a state of shock. There is definitely going to loads of photos on this when it happens. Oh, so here we have it. This person is not saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I can finally get to talk to people who have hands on the levers of government, who can do something about the plight of transgender people. Oh no, gosh, I've been invited to the House of Lords. What a photo opportunity. Well, gave the game away there, didn't we? Here we are, extra photos from today. Been fantastic and received lots of positive feedback. Continuing to create understanding and awareness. Yeah, that's the first thing on your mind, isn't it? However, Harry Fletcher, founder of Victims' Rights Campaign, said, for the sake of the victims, it's essential that those invited to speak at Parliament who have been convicted of crimes as serious as this should undergo a risk assessment to ensure they no longer pose a danger to the public. I don't care whether they pose a danger or not. This is not the sort of person who should be giving advice to anyone. And certainly not the sort of person who should be feted. You can ask them for their opinion in the quiet of a room with a recorder taking down notes or something, but to invite somebody to a grand reception at the House of Lords, that is not how we should be treating people with this sort of background. Miss Jones later shared a photograph of her later meeting Lord Patel on Facebook. Grammar. Miss Jones later shared a photograph on Facebook of her meeting Lord Patel and said it was a complete privilege. Why should she be extended? Why should he be extended that sort of privilege? I'm going to read what Jones did after he'd got out of jail for murdering his partner. I'm not going to read it. I'm going to just expand the print here and you can read it yourself. Okay, I'll give you a minute. time she was living in a female bail hostel, having presented herself as a trans woman called Karen Louise Lawson, although was sentenced under his birth name of John Jones. Okay, so it looks like he was at least in a male prison. Sentencing him to life, Judge Derwent Hope said, "Until you have full and proper treatment, I consider you to be potentially an extremely serious risk to any member of the public you associate with, a risk that could easily lead to that person's death." And Jones's name was added to the sex offender register for life. Look at these lovely photos of Jones lying there in a bed of roses, well, or standing there against some wallpaper, whatever. And this is the image that a lot of disturbed transgender, they call themselves transgender women, but they're men. And these disturbed people like to make soft focus photos of themselves, and they think that's what being a woman is all about. It isn't. For those of you who aren't women, you can take my word on that. And I haven't killed anybody, so perhaps my word isn't as good as this person's. Okay, an associate of Ms. Jones, whom I call Mr. Jones, contacted Mail Online to express concerns. Sorry, phone, hang on. Sorry about that. Problems with my horse. Okay, now, where was I? Yeah. So let's get back to this. An associate of Ms. Jones contacted Mail Online to express concerns that she's being held up as some sort of fountain of knowledge on transgender issues when she has a history of severe violence. So this is somebody who knows Mark Jones very well, apparently, and the source said that Jones had changed his name to keep people from finding out about his past. Changed his name twice to keep people from finding out about his past, adding it's all very uncomfortable. So somebody who knows Jones rang up to talk about the danger that this person poses to society, and this person is being invited into the House of Lords, this associate said, as some sort of fount of knowledge. She may be well placed to talk about what it's like to be a transgender offender, but going into the House of Lords seems like a tacit signal that what she did to her victims doesn't matter. And yeah, that's exactly it. But I think that part of the reason is that the people who are running our society cannot admit that this Jones person is mentally ill. And so are many of the other transgender activists. Are dangerously mentally ill. I mean, there was one where I made fun of it because a lot of feminists had a meeting in a park, a well-publicised meeting in a park, and then they got trouble from a transgender rabble. And I made fun of them because it's one thing to stand up for your rights. It's another thing to stand up for them in a well-publicised open space where you can be attacked. That's rubbish. But anyway, one of the women there was punched in the face by a transgender activist. Again, who I understand now, I've been told, is doing kickbox competitions in Thailand or something. That's a story I heard. That may not be true. But the point is that this person punched an older woman in the face, just like that. And these people, these activists, rather, they are violent and mentally unstable. I'm going to, I think I'll find a video of a transgender activist who is smashing up a shop This is quite a well-known case, and that happened in the USA.
You're going to give me my money back.
Excuse me, sir. There's a young man in here. You need to watch him.
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
I can call the police if you'd like me to. You need to settle down.
You need to settle down and mind your business, okay? Ma'am, once again, ma'am.
I said both of you.
No, you said sir. Once again, it's ma'am.
I actually said both of you guys. It was a general.
Right beforehand, you said sir.
Sir? Okay.
Mother, take it outside. If you want to call me sir again, I will show you a sir.
I apologize.
Mother.
I apologize now. I apologize for that.
I need your corporate number now. Please. Ooh.
Ma'am, I apologize.
Ooh.
I apologize now. I will get you that number right now.
It seems to be something that's happening all over the world, but the Western world, I mean. One of the first steps we can make is to admit these people are mad and admit them to institutions which can at least ensure that they are not a danger to other people. Shop assistants, for instance. Okay, I am Graniopteryx. I am to be found on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. I let you know when I've uploaded a video on Twitter, Gab and Parler, where I am at Graniopteryx. Try to enlist to one of those, because YouTube frequently doesn't tell people. And can you blame them? I mean, I shoot my mouth off about stuff they'd rather not have aired, I think. Okay, right, that's it. Please like this video, share it. Yeah, subscribe again and again and again. Just click that subscribe button and the bell, if there is a bell. And I suppose it helps with the algorithm. And yeah, till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share, share, share.